This is another episode of the Blossom Podcast, your number one source for everything bariatric surgery, from pre-op to post-op. Registered dietitian Alex Conception gives you real, raw tips and motivation through your journey. This is the Blossom Podcast.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Blossom Podcast. Today I want to revisit water, sipping, and the importance of water. So if you just had surgery not that long ago, just remember the number one reason for readmission to the hospital post-bariatric surgery is dehydration. So what we advocate in the first 2 weeks is the number one priority is hydration. It's fluid. 64 ounces is the goal, minimum 48, especially in the beginning. But we do use IV therapy at the hotel if you've had surgery with us, or if you're considering having surgery with us. We also have IV therapy the next day, which is extremely helpful, but it is a testament to how important it is as well as how difficult it can be. Okay, now 6 ounces an hour, that is a realistic expectation on weight. I'm sorry, not weight loss. Realistic expectation on sipping and getting hydrated and the amount of water that you can get in early on. But also know that we do have patients already drinking 100 ounces at 2 weeks. But we also have patients still drinking 20 ounces at 2 months. Those who struggle the most are typically those who are very poor water drinkers before surgery. So if that is you, basically you just need to turn into a good water drinker. Now, 6 ounces an hour, that is not a requirement. It is an average. You can drink a ton more. But by that perspective, you can get half a gallon in half a day. The issue is you don't drink all day. You're about to go to bed. You're not catching up. And that is for sure, because you will not be able to chug. You're not going to be able to guzzle that water down. So if you are a nighttime drinker or you get all your water in at night, it's not going to work. Now you have to sip diligently throughout the day because you don't want to end up in the hospital. Again, the number one reason for readmission to the hospital is dehydration. So don't go to the hospital for something as preventable as taking a sip every 15-30 minutes. Now, there is no actual restriction when it comes to fluid intake. It's just the fact that you had a surgical procedure. So if you can imagine cutting your arm and you poke it every 15 minutes, that's essentially what you're doing when you're drinking. You're poking a wound. Now, 100 people might say, ouch, 100 people might cry, and 100 people will say, that wasn't so bad at all. And things can be even a little bit slower, too, if you have a hiatal hernia repair. So you essentially what's going on is you are poking 2 wounds on the way down. So, yes, it can be a little bit slower. So that's where I say 6 ounces an hour is more of an average, but it is doable. What we give you in your bag now, if you do come to Blossom, is a shot glass, which is 2 ounces. And that is very realistic. It's very doable when you approach sipping in that manner, because all you have to do is knock out 3 shot glasses an hour every hour, and you're going to get half a gallon in half a day. So for those of you freaking out that you're doing so well, okay, so yes, we tell you that 6 ounces by volume is what your stomach can hold, and you're drinking a ton more than that. This is also where I say, or again, there is no actual restriction when it comes to fluid intake. If you're drinking 40 ounces an hour, that is perfectly fine. There are different rates of emptying. Every system in the body needs water. Every cell in the body needs water. So don't freak out thinking, oh my gosh, I'm drinking 40 ounces. Did I destroy my stomach? Did I stretch it out? What is going on? No, there's different rates of emptying, and also nothing is really slowing it down in terms of food intake. Especially in the first couple weeks, because you're just drinking. So it's going to be a little bit quicker in that regard. And if you're not feeling any pain, the rule of thumb is at your pace, the more the better. And that's where we're at. And that example just goes back to the comparing, which I talk about in the past and previous episodes. Don't compare, okay? So if you are drinking 40 ounces or 50 ounces while everybody else is only drinking 4, my question is always, who's everybody else? Okay, so again, at your pace, the more the better. You're not going to stretch out your stomach. You're not going to do any damage. Your body will let you know far before you do any real damage. Okay? Now, for those of you who are a little bit farther out and who are struggling with that fluid intake, for the most part, it is old habits dying hard. We used to chug. We used to drink a lot more, or our perception of what is little is not little enough. So you would take a chug of water or you would take a big gulp and you will feel pain, right? So our natural biological trigger is to avoid that pain, because we do things for 2 reasons: in the pursuit of pleasure or the avoidance of pain. So you stick your finger in a light socket and you electrocute yourself. Of course, your body and your brain is going to trigger that is bad and you don't want to do that. So we avoid it a little bit. Then ultimately you're saying, oh, I can only get 20 ounces in a day. I can only get 30 ounces in a day, but I'm really trying. No, we are mentally blocking ourselves because we had a bad experience. So take it down a little bit less and use, like I said, a shot glass or something of that nature, to where you can sip a little bit less and just do it a little bit more frequent. Because when you, attack trying to build the Great Wall, it's not going to work. But if you attack it with the perception and the approach to lay one brick at a time, it's going to happen over time and it's going to be a lot more manageable, and it's essentially easier to swallow, right? Pun intended. So take it a little bit slower and you will be able to frequently get those sips in. Set an alarm on your watch or your phone, and it's going to be you'll be able to knock out that fluid intake. And of course, you can spruce up your fluid intake with Gatorade Zero, Powerade Zero, Propel Zero, things of that nature, Crystal Light, Mio. We say no caffeine. We take out caffeine prior to surgery so you can deal with the headaches before surgery rather than after. But even afterwards, it's not a bad thing once you're getting adequate hydration. Number one reason for readmission in the hospital is dehydration. Caffeine is a diuretic. It increases that risk. So if you're a coffee drinker or something like that, you don't want to go to the hospital for a cup of coffee. Once you are hitting 64 ounces of fluid, I'm okay with you adding caffeine back in. And for some it's 1 week, for some it's 2 months. Just know the risk. But what we also suggest is decaf. There are trace amounts of caffeine in the decaf, enough to kick a headache, but not enough to really jeopardize your hydration. So you can get that decaf in, possibly kick a headache, but no cream, no sugar. There is no value in that. So what we also recommend is doing something like a Premier Vanilla or caramel shake, right? Or a protein shake, and use that as your cream and sugar. That way you are adding value. But for a lot of people, it's that morning ritual. That morning ritual does a lot. We've been doing it for years, right? Something is missing in the morning. So you can maintain that morning ritual with the decaf coffee and with a vanilla or a caramel or something of that nature to sweeten things up a little bit, and hopefully it will allow you to get through your day a little bit better, right? And then once you're getting that hydration in, then you can switch over to full caffeinated coffee. Otherwise, tea, again, make sure that it is decaf, and once you're getting that hydration in, you'd be able to switch it over to a full caffeinated tea. That's basically what I wanted to talk to you about today, is introducing that sipping. Those who are struggling, it's okay. You just have to take it a little bit slower, because you can and you will get that in. Because if you don't, 3 things are going to happen. You're going to get an IV, you're going to get a waste a day, and you're going to get a bill. Okay, so we don't want that either. So sip diligently. Break it down to 6 ounces an hour every 15 minutes or so. You'd be able to get half a gallon in half a day. And then, of course, you can start pressing your limits. Now, when it comes to sipping and eating at the same time, that is also just an outline. The idea is your stomach is a lot smaller right now. We want to prioritize hydration. We want to prioritize calories. But if you do them at the same time, you're not going to prioritize either. So that's where the 30 minutes comes from. Now, again, that is just an outline, and it's better to start off at a lengthy duration rather than a slow duration, because you wouldn't think you can tolerate anything at all. So if you are hitting the amount of calories and protein while waiting, let's say 5 minutes or 3 minutes to sip, then by all means, go for it. If you're the type of person that needs to lubricate your mouth when you eat, go for it. There's no actual contraindication between fluid and food. It's just the fact that we want you to get adequate protein, adequate calories, and adequate hydration. So by waiting, it's going to be a lot more doable by waiting. So if you don't need to wait that 30 minutes, that's perfectly fine. Just make sure that you are still getting hydrated and getting those calories, hitting those numbers. Okay? So that's pretty much it. Drink that water. It's very important. We'll do a follow-up on more of the importance of water and how it can help you break stalls and things like that as well. But for right now, that's it, guys. I'll see you in the next. Peace.
This was another episode of the Blossom Podcast. For more motivation and future episodes with Alex, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any life-changing moments.